All right, I just got done interviewing Chuck Ward, the king of flipping here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We talked about flipping homes. He's also the owner of the Cotton Eye Joe, and he just recently bought a racetrack that he's rehabbing and getting ready to launch again. This episode was really cool, especially if you're an entrepreneur or if you just want to be in the know of what's going on. You're going to want to check out this episode. Welcome to another episode of The Den. I'm Eric Weidner, broker owner of the Knox Real Estate Group, and my guest today is none other than Chuck Ward, CEO of CWRE Investments, self-proclaimed king of flipping with over 1,600 homes flipped in Knoxville, owner CEO of the world-famous Cotton Eye Joe, and most recently became the new owner of the Newport Speedway. Man, is there anything, first of all, is there anything I'm missing on that?
Well, no, I'm a retired professional softball player, so we had to give that up a couple of years back. I got too old.
Okay. I like it. Well, man, I appreciate you. You're clearly a busy guy, so I appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, very, very busy, very blessed. People ask me all the time, are you ever going to slow down? Do you ever think about retiring? I'm like, no, I hadn't thought about it lately.
Well, so I got a lot of questions for you today. And a lot of it, I think, is going to come back to the whys behind things, right? Let's just start with what I know you most for over the years is flipping homes, because you've been doing that a long time.
Yeah, over 30 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
We're here in the Knoxville area.
Yeah, pretty much 99% Knoxville area. I mean, we've done some stuff in Sevierville, couple in Gatlinburg, some in Maryville, but predominantly Knoxville.
So 30 years ago, what got you into it?
It's kind of weird. I was getting married at the time, and I told my first and only wife, I said, I don't want to start out renting. Let's see if we can buy a house and fix it up and live in it. And we found a sweet little house, and it didn't work out. We put a contract on it, but it didn't work out. But in the meantime, we had bought a couple of acres of land, and I thought, well, we'll just build a house. So we did. We ended up building a house. It was a new cedar rancher, and we lived there about 3 years. And the neighborhood kind of started changing. There was some things going on in the neighborhood we just wasn't really fond of, so we decided we would move to the city. And my dad's best friend at the time had become very ill, and they'd placed him in a nursing home, and his daughter called me and she said, would you be interested in buying Dad's house? And it was right in the city of Knoxville on a street called Lakeview. And I said, absolutely. And we bought that little 2-bedroom house for $40,000, sold our newer home, bought it. And it was kind of at that time we were painting and refinishing floors and, remodeling the kitchen and doing some things. I told her, I said, I really think we could make some money flipping houses. So, not that it was easy, but we enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So we started immediately looking for a home to flip, and I ended up buying an older home from a gentleman by the name of Don Cantor. He was in the real estate business a long time here in Knoxville. He's passed away now. And we paid $25,000 for that first flip, and ended up making about $12,000 on it after we remodeled it. So I was pretty much hooked at that point. And I bought 3 deals that year, and it just kind of blossomed, I think the most we ever flipped in a year was 38. So
38. That's okay. So for the average real estate agent, selling 38 homes in a year is a big deal.
That'd be a big year, yes.
Flipping 38 homes sounds like almost sounds like chaos the more I think about it.
A lot of hair loss. Yeah, definitely.
Well, so with that being said, okay, so since you started to today, there's been a lot of TV. There's been a lot of all these shows, these Joanna Gaines, I think, all those shows.
Yep.
I mean, for somebody who's never flipped a home, is it like that?
No, it's not. I mean, there's some of the things that are similar to what you experience, but you really never know. I mean, from the time you buy the house to till you remodel it, till you sell it, to the home inspection, I feel like we do as good a work as anybody. I've had the same guys that have worked for me for years, and they know what I expect, and they'll tell people, well, Chuck's not going to like that. We got to do this different, and But I don't, I don't bear down on them. I never question them about their time. We have a very good relationship. We all work very well together. We just we're closing on a house tomorrow, and we had 4 or 5 things we had to fix on a punch list, and it was all very easy.
Yeah.
But I sent my guy over there. He knew exactly what we needed to do. In a couple of hours, he was finished, and he sent me the pictures, and everything was great. But it's not that easy on some things. But the market has changed so much. I mean, it's just being in it. Even the last 20 years, we went from it was hard to find deals on houses, but then when you did, it was hard to sell them. To everything was bringing 10, 15, 20% over market value and multiple offers, and you could sell anything and didn't worry about nobody even wanted to do a home inspection.
Yeah.
Now we're leaning back toward, people are getting a little bit harder to please. Still not any inventory,
Right.
not we're short of inventory still, but the market has changed so much. I've bought several homes for $100,000 that would now bring $700,000. And we've also bought several for $25,000 that are now bringing $250,000, $300,000. So it's really, I've told people for years, we live in a great place, and you get a ton of bang for your buck. But it's just, how the market has changed so much in the last 20 years is mind-boggling.
Well, man, I mean, and even in the last, since 2019 to today,
Yeah.
I feel like we've been in this whiplash effect, where being 2020 couldn't do anything, to then the market just started to take off.
Yep.
To then rates went crazy, or not crazy, but they doubled.
Well, they doubled, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was crazy compared to what they had been. But keep in mind, when I bought my first house, it was 12.5%. So they're still not they're still not high. It's a culture shock because you've been paying 2 and 3%. But we knew that wasn't going to last.
Well, yeah. Well, and so from an investor standpoint, you can look at an interest rate and look at it. You're leveraging money.
Correct.
From a homeowner standpoint, they don't see it the same way, even though it's the same tool. They see it as my housing expense is this much now. And
well, it's still cheaper than 100% rent interest that you'd be paying.
it is. I'm glad you said that, not me, because I'm the real estate agent, and that's one of those lines that
Hey, the truth hurts there. It's I had several rentals at one time. I felt like that was what I wanted to do at my point in life, but I'm down to one, and it was the home place that I grew up in, and I don't care to ever buy rentals again. I just don't. At this point in my life, I've lost my patience for renters.
Well, you kind of beat me to my next question: flip versus rent. So there's, I've always kind of looked at flipping houses as a bit like a job,
Right.
right? Because you have the work of finding it. You have to, buy it, get all that stuff. You flip it, and then you sell it, and you make hopefully good money.
Right.
But that money is only going to last so long unless you go put it in something else. And so you have to constantly do that. Then you have there's investors in all sorts of fields of housing, but then you really have kind of the flip and the rent market. And the people that rent, they do that for, long-term wealth and all that. But what I think catches most people is they have 1 or 2 rentals, and then they have a problem with a renter, and now 50% of their houses have issues,
Right.
and it's not worth it.
Or they've made $4,000 or $5,000 the first year after they bought their first rental. Second year, the heat and air system goes out, and they've got to replace it, so they lost all the money they made the first. It's really tough. It's as I look back, if I could turn the clock back and do anything different, I would have bought and paid for a rental house every year. So I'd had 30 or so paid for at this point. Because, I bought some just astronomically cheap.
Yeah.
$17,000, $18,000, $20,000, $10,000. Crazy cheap. But if I could do that again, I'd had 30 paid for, and I'd have a management company that would take care of everything.
Well,
and that'd be some great income. But the typical person that's just going to go out and call you and say, "Hey Terry, Eric, I want to buy a rental house," and you find them one, it's going to be tough for them to get their money back in 10 or 12 years.
Yeah.
If nothing major happens or somebody doesn't move out, trash the house before they move out. And all renters are good renters until they become renters.
Yeah.
It's their mindset, their focus changes, and it's easier for them to say, "Hey, I don't have my rent this month because I had to put brakes on my car, or had to buy tires, or there's always something that takes their rent money." And I've got friends that have several hundred rentals, but that's just not. I feel like if you were going to become a young investor, flipping houses would be. In fact, my nephew called me the other day and he said, "Hey, Unc," he said, "I want to do something next year with some money we've got." He said, "Would you encourage me to buy a flip or buy a rental house?" I said, "Flip." I didn't even let him get finished, and we talked about it a little bit Sunday at my mom's for Father's Day, and he said, "That's really the way you feel?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "You don't have time to go change out a water heater or call somebody that it's going to charge you $1,000 to do it." And I said, "Buy you a flip house, something you can find. You guys do some work on." He's got some people that can help him. His father-in-law is very handy. And I said, "Let your father-in-law help you. Let your dad help you. He's a painter, and make you a few bucks and buy you another one.
Yeah.
Because it takes years to accumulate what you make off that first rental house, plus the headache that goes along with it."
Yeah, that's true. I was gonna say I think and I own a rental that we just happened into. It was a client of ours. I think it would also still make a good flip if I decide to, So at the end of the day, if this renter moves out and it ain't perfect, we can
Right.
rehab and sell it. But I think the story that everybody gets wrapped up in is I own 30 doors, I own 50 doors, 100 doors. Well, if you own 100 doors and one AC unit goes out, excuse me, or 10 go out,
Yeah.
You still have all this other rental income coming in. It's just part of the business then. It's not a major impact. And you can see how that becomes that mailbox money type lifestyle.
Yeah. Believe you me, I've weighed it out every way you can if possible, and it's just really hard to, in my opinion, make it work. I mean, you can, but overall, I think the goal would be investing and flipping a house.
So, have you, in today's market, because you're actively still flipping homes,
Mm-hmm.
do you find people still come to us looking for a deal? And
Good luck.
well, okay, that's what I was going to get at. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
there are some deals, but they're few and far between. I had a couple realtors sent me a house first of last week, and it was an extremely good deal. But I'm sure they had 20 offers on it.
I think there's a lot of people out there who still think that we have homes for $50,000, $60,000, $70,000.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't that long ago. I mean, post COVID, I had people obviously coming from out of state, wanting lakefront property for $50,000, $60,000. And I said,
Yeah.
the only thing I could respond with, man, if we find that, I'm buying 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like those days are gone. So knowing what you know about our real estate market from your vantage point versus mine, what do you? A lot of people say our prices were overpriced. Home prices are going to come down. We're going to have a crash. All that good stuff. Where do you see it?
I personally don't think we're going to have a crash because we're still so underhoused. I mean, so many people are still looking for a house to live in. And you're right. People call me all the time and say, "Hey, my son's going to buy a house. He's looking for a 3-bedroom for about $150,000." And I'm like, "Well, good luck. If you double that, you may." And they don't realize that prices have went up that much. But the cost of materials alone, I mean, everything you do is so super expensive. You want to spend some money, buy a racetrack and remodel that. But just typical things that we used to buy, interior doors, that you could buy a pre-hung door for $60 or $70. You can add $100 to that now. A water heater is $500 or $600. I mean, a heating and air unit that you could buy for $2,000 is now $3,000. Everything's went up 40-50%. So yes, housing has went up, but when you equal out the value of what you're getting versus what you would spend if you built a house or if you have to remodel one, we're getting a lot of bang for our buck. Knoxville's always been a great place to live as far as real estate values. Yeah, things have went up, no doubt. But when you look at what it would cost you to build something, we were talking about permitting earlier and inspections, you've got to go through that hassle as well.
Yeah.
you know, grass seed $70 a bag. So I mean, it starts with everything you touch when you buy a house.
Yeah.
So anytime you can buy an existing home affordably, you know, then you're way ahead of the game.
Well, and I still look at like cost of living. Yeah, I will say that the market shift, the increase in home values that we've experienced in this short period of time has probably had the most impact on the people who have lived here the longest.
Right.
Right. For people moving from out of state, they still see that value because we're our property taxes are extremely cheap. I mean, I look at houses up in the Northeast. If you look at the property taxes, they're living in this, 1,200, 1,300 square foot, 3 bedroom, and they got $10,000 property taxes. Meanwhile over here, you're breaking 1,000.
We just, prime example, we just listed a house in South Knoxville, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. Lady from California bought it, bought it sight unseen. Her realtor did the video tour and sent it to her, and she paid cash. And I promise you, she probably left $1 million home there with high taxes
Yeah.
to buy a $320,000 home here with cheaper taxes. It was completely remodeled. I mean, we'd done everything from exterior doors, siding, windows, soffit fascia, brand new kitchen with appliances, two new bathrooms. It had beautiful hardwood floors. It's finished. So, and then you could sell 100 like that.
Yeah.
Because they're less than 350. Everybody can buy one.
Yeah.
And she scarfed it up because, just trying to find that deal. But yeah, things have got more expensive. But you compare it to the price of rental, it's nothing to hear somebody paying $1,800, $2,000 a month for a 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom apartment.
I got a buddy of mine, his daughter, she's actually moving from one apartment complex to another. And then the plan is to buy a house. But their 1 bedroom is going up to $1,800.
Wow. Well, these kids in college, they're paying $1,200, $1,400 a month for a 1 bedroom that they're sharing with 4 other people.
That's where it's like really hard. And that's probably from the consumer standpoint. The problem with renting versus buying is once you've bought, you know your cost. Mm-hmm. When you rent, you're just betting that your rent won't go up to somewhere you can't afford. I mean, I will say I had to feel bad for some of the people over the last couple of years who have had to move because their $700, $800 a month rent was going up to $1,200, $1,300. Where those people went, I don't know. Yeah. Because there is no more $800 a month rent.
That's right.
So, that's one of the, I think the most important things about buying at least your own primary residence. What kind of 30 years? I'm sure you've learned some lessons over some won't do that again kind of thing. What are some of those that maybe come to mind?
Maybe some boundary lines. Getting a survey when we didn't do that. Learning that your property wasn't exactly what you thought it would be. The house that I live in, of course, I've been there 21 years, but when we bought it, there was actually 2 parcels of ground, both of those on the contract. So we contracted to buy them both. We closed on both, and about a month later, we found out that the second parcel was owned by a separate bank, and they didn't have the right to sell it or close it. So, of course, I ended up being turned into a lawsuit with a $15,000 lawyer then, and we ended up getting the property back. We had to buy it back, but we got it back, and we got awarded 7/8 of the money. They held me 1/8 responsible. The mediator told me I should have got a survey, and I'd flipped homes, and I knew what I was doing. So, that was my fault, and it was. But you would have never dreamed that a huge real estate company here in Knoxville would have made a mistake like that. But it happens. I've ran across, I've bought some properties and think the driveway was here, and 3 months later somebody'd build a house beside of you, and they'd say, well, no, that driveway needs to be moved, or they'd put a driveway in right beside your house to get to their house. So it just mostly some property setbacks or boundary lines is where we've run into a few problems, or very seldom you have some major termite damage that you didn't realize you had. That'll always pop up occasionally, but overall, we've been pretty fortunate. Like I said, I use some really good people that I've had working for me for several years, and and they've done such a good job that I don't really worry too much about it. And I'll buy houses. I'm closing on one Friday that I haven't seen the house yet, but it's in Rocky Hill. You can't go too wrong, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
True.
and then I've got another one we're closing on the following week that I've yet to look at, but it's in South Knoxville, and I know the street real well. I know the house real well, but it's, you know, we've been pretty fortunate, pretty blessed not to find too many things wrong. Ran into an animal smell one time that we never got rid of. Had several cats, but I don't know that was one of those that you laid awake at night thinking, what in the world am I going to do? Because, you know, at that point you're tearing up plywood and things trying to get that smell out, and we finally mastered it.
You ever use one of those ozone machines?
I've never had any luck out of those. I talked to a gentleman the other day. We had a small fire at one of our businesses, and he said that'll take all the smell out. But when you go in there and look at the building and you see the soot on the walls and you see the soot on it's a concrete building, you see the soot on the ceilings, well, that's not going to work. I mean, It may help for a minute or two, but that's got to be removed.
Yeah, yeah.
So insurance company's taking care of that. But
So I find it interesting that surveys are one of the biggest, or one of the most prominent things that you've kind of dealt with, because I started real estate in Ocala, Florida, and every deal, like the title company would not close it without a survey, unless a survey had been done like within the last year or so. Like they would have to approve a.
I'm kind of surprised they haven't done that here as far as in multi-acre tracts. Even the subdivision plots. We just had a survey. Was lucky enough to buy 3 houses that were side by side. They were a gentleman's rental properties. He had built them in 2005. But even seeing that survey, the boundary, we just did the boundary lines because the first gentleman we sold the house to wanted to put a fence up for his dog. So it was mind-boggling to see. It's kind of like Christmas. You're either really surprised or really disappointed. We were really surprised on this one, and they were exactly where I thought they should be.
Good.
But now I've been in the other side of it and be like, oh no, I wish I hadn't got that survey, because it really shows you what your property lines are. But
it is one of those things. So we every deal, now out of state people may be more likely to ask about a survey, and of course the response normally, well, they're not that common here.
Yeah.
And probably one of the problems that we see, back then, I don't know what they are now, but back down there, a survey cost you, let's just say, $300-400 to go out and survey the full 9 yards, with the actual plat and everything, and you'd have it.
Did you say $300 or $400?
Yeah.
More like $1,200 or $1,500.
Well, so that's what I'm saying here, and we only have so many surveyors.
Yeah.
And you may be 3-4 weeks out to get a surveyor.
Yeah, minimum. It's crazy. We went through the same thing trying to get these lots surveyed, and finally got a guy to do it. And he was going to go next week, and it was the next week and the next week, but did a great job. And hasn't even sent me a bill yet. So I'm thinking he's that far behind he can't even bill people.
Well, or maybe that one's just on him.
Maybe just did it on the house since I'm the king of flipping. Exactly.
So as far as, okay, if you were talking like you were talking to, I think you said your nephew, about getting into flipping.
Right.
What direction would you point him in?
I think getting into flipping would be probably a gross overstatement. I think he wants to flip a house or two just for some passive income. But I just told him, I said, I'll help you any way I can. Be choosy. He does a lot of real estate photography, and he's really done extremely well the last couple of years. His business has grown, and he's doing a lot of drone work and stuff. And he's a very particular kid, and he's kind of perfectionist. So he's starting to work for a lot of realtors. So he's probably seeing what people are doing as far as flipping houses or remodeling houses, selling them themselves.
It's hard not to.
So he's getting a little bit, so to speak,
Yeah.
and he knows that we've done it for several years. So he's probably realizing that there's a little bit of money to be made there, and so he'll find one. I guarantee someone will give him a lead. Somebody will give him a house that he can buy. And like I said, he's got a father-in-law that can do anything.
Yeah.
Very talented father-in-law. His dad's a painter, so a little elbow grease, painting, and the father-in-law helping, then they'll be fine.
I would say definitely having a few reliable connections is probably the most important part, because if you, Like if you're just gonna go like buy a house and then go hire a contractor.
Yeah, it's mind boggling to me. Like I said, I've been very fortunate and very blessed to have the guys that I've got working for me. But if I had to venture out and start hiring new contractors, it would be bad. Um, especially on the commercial end, or the industrial end, it's mind boggling some of the prices that they charge. I'm paying an electrician at the racetrack $80 an hour per man. And I'm just sitting and thinking, wow, this could be a $25,000 or $30,000 labor bill, by the time we get done.
Yeah.
And it's just mind-boggling to think that the lighting itself was $16,000 to $18,000, so you're talking double to install them, which is crazy. But we had a very good conversation yesterday about kind of where we stood, what our budget was, and but the cost of everything is just astronomical.
So in a situation like that, and we'll get to this racetrack in a little while, but in a situation like that, I always picture like someone says, okay, well, this would be my price to do that job. It sounds like on that deal, they may have given you an estimate, but it's just an hour. Like if it takes
Well, and actually, we had that discussion yesterday. He said, I normally don't bid commercial jobs by the hour, and I said, I normally don't pay anybody to work by the hour.
Yeah.
I've learned in the past that's not what you want to do. And I have had to do that a couple times.
Somehow it always ends up taking a little
Well,
longer.
yeah, there's a lot more smoke breaks and lunch breaks and talk to the wife breaks, and just the hourly rate usually don't work. But you just sometimes you don't have any choice but to do that because you got to get the work done.
Yeah. Excuse me. All right. Well, so flipping homes to then Cotton Eye Joe.
Yeah.
That seems like two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Very much so.
Why?
A lot of people knew, a lot of people didn't know that I had a production background. I've been a stagehand in the local Knoxville Stagehands Union. It's actually called the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, Local 197, which is the Knoxville local. Been dabbling in that since '93.
Okay.
And become a full card member in '95. I held the job of the business agent, which placed all the members on the calls. And they do work at the Gatlinburg Convention Center, LeConte Center, in Sevierville. They work in Maryville at the college and in the Clayton Performing Arts Center, Knoxville Coliseum, the Bijou Theater, the Tennessee Theater, Thompson Bowling Arena. So they do a lot of, and it's basically anything to do with stage work, rigging, lighting, sound, video production, Broadway shows, plays, ballets, rock shows, anything to do with entertainment. So I got to dabbling in that in '93, became a full card member in '95. Like I said, was later voted business agent. I held the job as president for 10 years. I've kind of stepped back now, don't do a lot of work with them. I'm still a member, but we were producing shows behind the Harley store there in West Knoxville. There's a big stage there behind Bootlegger Harley Davidson. So we were producing shows there and parking at the Cotton Eye Joe. So as we would go get our cars and leave, I would stand and talk to the former owner. And, I had heard he was wanting to sell the bar. And we just discussed it one night. I said, hey, I heard you wanted to sell this place. And he said, yeah, I'd sell it. He goes, I've been here 24 years. It's almost long enough. And that's why I might be interested in buying it. And he said, well, I've had a lot of people say that. And I said, well, no, I'm seriously interested if you want to sell it. Knew nothing about owning a bar, not anything. I knew the production end. I was raised in the food business, had worked in a bar and a restaurant, but as far as buying a bar of that magnitude, I didn't know anything about it.
Well, yeah, because you didn't just like buy the corner bar.
I didn't buy the Dots Bar and Grill down on the corner of
Yeah.
Central Avenue.
No, you jumped all in.
I've been known to do that most of my life, I'll be honest with you. Anyway, it was it was fun. I have a great business manager that we also have a couple small businesses with, and I contacted him and I told him, kind of what the numbers were, and I knew our numbers would be different because they'd had the place 24 years, and there was really not any reason to show all the numbers, I guess, without sharing all their secrets. But we visited a couple times, and we come up with a price, and of course, the next thing was the financing. we had the money cash to pay for the bar, but I wanted to buy the property. And a real estate friend of mine started digging around, and we found out that the Shaws owned it, but they don't very seldom sell anything. That was a piece of property they owned with the Schuberts. So that was some of the properties they were trying to get rid of. And
Those are some old Knoxville names right there.
that's some big money too. And so we ended up getting to buy the property and the business, did an SBA loan, and it worked out really good for us for the first 3 years. And you know, next thing I knew, it was Wednesday night, and I was a bar owner and looking around thinking, what in the hell have I got myself into this time? But it's really been probably the best investment that I've ever made. We've been there, it'll be 7 years in November. With bar ownership, there are some headaches that come along with it, but overall, 95% of our people are really good people, and we've really tried to give it a new image and make it more family friendly and old folks friendly like myself, you know, not so much young people. And we've had to ban a few people to keep them from coming in there because they were troublemakers. But overall, it's been a great investment. It's doing really well. The properties really went up. They announced, obviously, Topgolf was going to open about 6 months after we closed on it, so that was a good thing. And in that area right there, they've built so many apartment complexes and housing complexes that we've, you know, benefited from that with some good marketing people. It's just kind of went to the next level.
Yeah.
So, you know, as I look back, it was probably the best investment I ever made.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And I have a great staff there as well. They really are dedicated, and they love the place. And most of your customers are like family. They come back weekend after weekend, and you know they just enjoy it. And we, knock on wood, we've been very fortunate. We've really got the only game in town, and you know that you can ride a bull, you can line dance, you can shoot pool, you can eat food, you can, you know, have cocktails with friends or whatever. It's just a really good social hangout.
So I would say the hours are obviously different for you with that.
Yeah, they're very different for me and my business manager because he works a couple nights a week, and he we're both getting to the age now where we're just kind of like, you know, we're probably getting a little too old for this. But I've got a good weekend manager that closes for me, and then, like I said, my business manager helps me a couple nights a week. So I'm there a couple nights a weekend. Now last Saturday we had a concert. I was there from 7:30 a.m. till about 3 o'clock in the morning. So Sunday I'm just completely zapped.
Yeah, that's a day right there.
Yeah,
That's a long
well, it's
day.
a half a week for most people. So it's just, you know, as the old song says, the hangovers hurt more than they used to. Well, it ain't a hangover, but it's a work hangover.
Right. Excuse me. So, like, having now, you said you're 7 years in. It sounds like a net positive. So, what are the things you like the most about owning that? Like, and what are some of the things you dislike the most?
I think the things I like owning the most about it are just the people that you see and you meet. It's kind of like the fair. You don't ever really know what's going to happen that night and who's going to walk in the door. And I mean, you can be there. Like one night last year, Kane Brown walked in, you know, because he'd played there and he wanted to stop back by and see it. You'll have some athletes that'll stroll in, you know, through the years or through the months, and you know, just the people you see, the people that work for me. And I've got a gentleman by the name of Andrew. He's been there 31 years. He's kind of got a Jerry Lewis personality, and he's just, you know, I'll say, Andrew, was we busy last night? And he said, not busy enough. You know, he's always got a positive attitude, and he knows that bar inside and out. He does all of our ordering, and I don't know what I'd do without him. I told him, I said, when you retire, I'm going to retire, but he's not in any hurry to do that. But it's just, I think the live entertainment's fun, watching people grow and having people come in there and say, hey, my mom and dad met here, and now I'm coming here, or my grandparents met here, my mom and dad, you know, dated and came here. And it's kind of a world-renowned staple of entertainment. It's just, you very seldom meet anybody that don't say, hey, I know where the Cotton Eye Joe is, or we stopped there years ago. I was in the Bahamas last fall, and the DJ started playing the Cotton Eye Joe song, and the lady said, oh, that's a club right down the street from where I live. And I was like, oh, really? I said, well, I happen to know the owner. She said, you do? I said, yeah, that's me. And we got to talking, and we were both down there for the same thing, the same kind of trip. But it's amazing, you know, that you meet people from all over the world that's heard of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we were lucky enough, a couple years after I bought it, we was lucky enough to win the ACM Nightclub of the Year, which was really cool because just a country boy from South Knoxville, to get to go walk the red carpet with all these entertainers and
Well, I
sit
bet.
with these people and make national news. It was really neat.
So, so is there anything? Is there anything you're at any point in time where you're like, man, why'd I do this? I don't like this. Why?
I told somebody the other day, I've never walked through the door and said, I just hate that I made this choice or this decision to buy the bar. You get some people in alcohol don't get along.
I
And it's now become, kind of a disappointment is how I look at it, because people will be inside doing things they're not supposed to. They'll swing on one of my bouncers and they expect us not to retaliate, or bring them outside and they'll swing on one of us, or they want to put you in jail for assault or sue you for, hurting them or whatever. It's always a lawsuit lurking somewhere, but I think we live in that world. But you get a few of those instances, every year,
yeah,
which is a little disheartening. We want everybody to come in and have a good time,
right.
and I have really trained my guys to. The old mentality was take them out back or take them to the train station. Well, you just can't do that anymore.
Right.
We live in a different world. It's a sue society, and I'm like, hey guys, kill them with kindness as much as you can. And you'll read the reviews from years ago and even a couple years ago, like we're just bad people and we just beat everybody up. Well, I'm too old to fight anymore, and my temper is not as bad as it used to be. But we want everybody to come and have a good time. But you've got to be able to, you have to be able to behave, because we have really set this atmosphere for different types of people and older people and people that's in their 40s and 50s or 80s for that matter. We want you to come in there and be safe.
Well, yeah.
And we want you to have a good time. And if you don't, then generally we have to deal with it, however that ends up.
I would say it. You're definitely dealing with a lot of people, because I'll tell you what, I drive by Cotton Eye Joe often, live right up here off of Campbell Station. The place is packed. I mean, you got cars on the right, in the front, in the field on the left.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not crowd control, but just, you don't know what those people have done before they walked in.
Exactly. And that's a great statement too, because people, you try to, my front door guy is really good about kind of judging people, and I sit there with him, and we turned a couple of people the other way again the other night. They couldn't hardly walk, and I was like, hey, I can't take the liability of you coming in here. You've had too much to drink. Come back another night. Nothing personal. We can't. You just can't come in. Or a lot of underage drinking and a lot of underage fake IDs. So you try to nip that in the bud, and these young kids will look at you like, well, can you give me my fake ID back? No, I can't give it back to you, because if you go to Weigel's and buy beer and cause a wreck, then I'm responsible.
Yeah.
And you look at them and I'm like, this is a felony in Florida. You get caught using an ID, it's a felony. They're going to take you to jail. One girl said, well, we're not in Florida. And I'm like, well, I understand, but you're missing the point. It is against the law to use a fake ID, and it's a felony in Florida, but so many younger people are so much smarter than us. You remember when you were young, how smart you was. Amazing what you learned by the time you got older. But it's kind of like they're very headstrong, and I get that, and I appreciate that. But wrong is wrong, and we have officers down there from time to time in events and things, and they'll tell them, hey, it's against the law to drink underage. You can do it, but it's not legal.
Right.
So it's definitely not going to be. I'm not going to let you in here.
It's I would say that's probably I know. So my mom and my brother, they owned a place. It's called the Beer Wash. This is up in Northeast Tennessee, Roan Mountain. I don't know if you're familiar with Roan Mountain. Just a little place, had a drive through, all this stuff. But even their little place, like, they did that for a few years, and it was kind of like always something. And again, I think most of the time the reason why there was always something is there was always somebody who came who had already been a little intoxicated or hopped up on something. I know that it's got to be hard to change I don't want to say the image, but sort of the image.
It really was, and that's a good point. It was hard to change the image, because these guys that owned it before me, they were big guys, worked out every day, and they were basically, their look was intimidating.
Yeah.
And of course, then you got me at 5'9" and 180 pounds. My look's not as intimidating. But you just have to learn your crowd, and 95%, like I said, 99% of our people are great. we very seldom have a problem anymore. We're very fortunate. Um, but we also live in a world where that, you know, a lot of people carry guns, and
Yeah.
they feel like that they decide to take them in a bar and we miss one. Then that's happened a couple of times, which can be a little scary. Most of the time, it's not. Most people, they're very, oh, I forgot, or it's just something I do,
Right.
or it's an older person, that they're just more comfortable with having their firearm on them, but just can't bring it in a bar. But with that being said, like I said, we have more good than bad.
Oh, I believe it.
Excuse me.
I would say the town of Farragut is probably very proud of that change in.
We've definitely made a lot of friends with the town of Farragut. We're having those business social meetings there, at least once or twice a year. The mayor's become very receptive of what we do. In fact, we very seldom I see him. Hey, if you need anything, give us a call. We've definitely cleaned the outside up. We've done a lot of. And I'm a very particular individual anyway, so it's, and my people know that. Hey, Mr. Ward's going to be upset if the place ain't clean. So, and I'm vacuuming all the time. I'm emptying trash. People see that.
Yeah.
Why are you outside sweeping the parking lot? Well, because it needs to be swept, and that's just me. That's my work ethic.
Well, I think the cool thing too, talking about the town of Farragut a minute, and the location of the Cotton Eye Joe, being in Farragut and where it is on Outlet Drive, is what led way to there being a Top Golf, because they were able to then say, hey, well, we already have one entertainment spot here.
Yep.
We should be able to have another one.
They basically planned that as the entertainment corridor or road of Farragut.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
I mean, it really does.
Yep.
And that won't, obviously, one thing I will say, I know we had a lot of growth in our area over the last couple of years, but I got to say, owning a business such as a restaurant, a bar, an entertainment venue is not easy.
Nope.
And it requires people. And so, like, I'm always kind of like, man, that's awesome for you when you think about, okay, so like the Admiral Pub over here by Kroger, small little, beer spot, little bar.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know what their sales have been over the years, but I can tell you, throwing some apartments across the street's probably not bad for their business.
No.
And how about that? They made it this far that now, without maybe even trying to advertise anymore or spend any more money, they can have more patrons coming in the door.
Well, and there's a use on review for the property where the hotel was, the old hotel was there beside our place. So I think it's going to be a motel. I'm not sure, but that's just more beneficial to us.
Right. So, what's some of the best performers or performances you've had there? Excuse me.
Chris Stapleton played there before I bought it, and he was probably the biggest crowd that they had ever had. But we had Dirk Bentley there. He did a summer bar tour, so that was pretty cool. Had a bunch of people there that night, a couple thousand. And but we've had so many young up and comers. Cody Johnson's played there twice. He'll never grace the doors there again. Jelly Roll was involved in he was with an opening. He was opening for Yellow Wolf. And there was a gentleman on the tour with him that was an opener that had a warrant out of Georgia for murder. So all the local authorities and U.S. Marshals and DEA agents showed up, and they basically pulled Jelly Roll out of a van and made him walk backwards. And I had it on video for a long time, and I never knew he'd blow up like he has.
Yeah.
But anyway, with that being said, that was that's a pretty cool story because he hadn't done anything wrong, but when they go in and try to arrest somebody, they obviously detain everybody to make sure there's no weapons or something, But anyway, with that being said, that was kind of an interesting night. But we've had some very, very talented entertainers, some that's went on to, do bigger and better things. Tyler Childress never played there. I wished he had of, but he didn't. But Parker McCollum has now made it really big. Cody Johnson. Just trying to think of some of the ones that's been there. It's kind of crazy, but
it sounds like if you want to make it big, you got to go play at the Cotton Eye Joe.
Well, it's definitely a stepping stone. We've got a guy there Friday night. I'm going to have to think of his name real quick, but he's going to be there. And then there's another gentleman coming in October, Gavin Adcock. He's blown up. I mean, like he's already sold 14 or 1,500 tickets. He'll be a one and done for sure. But there's, like I said, there's been a lot of people play there, and then they make it so big so fast that that's the end of that.
Yeah. So, Oliver Anthony.
Oh boy, just had to bring that up, didn't you?
Well, kind of, because
I'm glad you did. The truth hurts.
That was, I don't know all the details, but I did see some of the the comments and some of the rhetoric.
Some of the craziest comments. One thing about me, I mean, I'm very honest in what I do, and if I've ever done anything to you that's offended you, I'm sorry. But it was probably rightfully so. We reached out to Oliver Anthony's camp and said, "Hey, we'd love to have him at the Joe." And the gentleman's exact words were, "We're glad you did. We want to play in Knoxville, and if we want to play in Knoxville, we want to play at the Cotton Eye Joe." And as being the businessman that I am, I said, "Hey, what's he charging for a night?" And he said, "Well, it's $150,000 a night for an hour." And I said, "Well, that's not going to work." I said, "What if we agreed on $120,000? Because I'm going in my mind, I'm thinking if we could sell $1,200 tickets, we could break even, and it would have been a great night for the bar." And they said, "We probably could make that work." And I told him specifically the first conversation we had. I said, "We just had Kevin Costner here last year. We had to sell tickets for $100, and I said we lost money on the show." Super good guy, super good entertainer, but he didn't make the nut, so to speak.
Yeah.
So they were all in agreement with that, and I told him, I said, so you don't have a problem with me charging $100 for a ticket. I said, keep in mind, we're not a stadium, we're not, an amphitheater, we're not Brushy Mountain Prison where they can have 3,000 or 4,000 people. I said we're limited to about 1,500 or 1,600 legally, and they was all in agreement. Keep in mind, this was his plumber friend that was his manager at the time.
Yeah.
And he said, "Get us a contract together, we'll sign it." Sent him a contract. So I called back the third day into contract negotiations and finalizing the contract, sending it to him. I said, "I've sent you the contract, sign it, send it back. Not a problem." I said, "Let's talk about meet and greets." I said, "Do you have a problem with us doing meet and greets?" And he said, "No." I said, "Can we charge for them?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Well, I just give a couple of my girls that work for me $500 for 2 meet and greet passes to meet Cole Wetzel. You think you could charge $100 to meet him?" He said, "Yeah, we'll meet and greet as many people as you'd like for us to." Very cut and dry.
Yeah.
No mincing of words. The only thing I didn't do is record the conversation. We sent the contract. He got back with me on Sunday. He said, we've been out of phone service. We'll sign it, send it back to you tomorrow." We sent him kind of a preview of the on sale. Tickets $100, meet and greet $99, or $199. You got a ticket and a meet and greet, or it was $100 each. That's great, no problems. Went on sale Monday at 10 a.m. We sold 500 tickets in the first 3 hours at $100. And at 4 o'clock, he went on social media and said that we basically were taking advantage of people. He had never agreed for that price of a concert ticket, and there'd been some miscommunication. He wasn't really blaming us, but don't buy tickets from Cotton Eye Joe. We're going to renegotiate or do something different. And then, of course, 4:30, I pulled the plug on the show.
So I guess I didn't realize he's the one who basically called it out. He's the one who,
he was getting some flack and some feedback over the cost of the tickets because he's the works for the man, so to speak, or for the working man. And we later found out it could have been a publicity stunt just to make him get bigger. But most of the time, that stuff will come back and bite you, especially in the music business. I don't think he's very well respected. I think that a lot of people have learned. There's some past there. Even just some stuff that's brought up to me that was mind-boggling. Some things he's dabbled in through the years or whatever. But we didn't do anything wrong. We had 35,000 hate emails. People don't know me. They've never met me. They've never walked in the Joe. Never graced the doors of the Cotton Eye Joe. But they were his, 1.2 million followers. So they were upset. "Oh, we just can't believe that you'd do him like this." Hell, I didn't do him anyway. He did us wrong.
So the whole premise of number one, doing your music on social media, you get a song that blows up, and that song blew up, and you guys were doing that right. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't think I've heard the song in the last 6-8 months.
It's kind of died out, yeah.
But you guys were basically doing that like kind of in the height of his hype. But any other person, I mean, nobody does all that to not make money. Nobody.
Well, we're all in it to make money, and don't get me wrong, we may have made $20,000. I mean, I had a guy email me and tell me, "Well, you'd have made $1 million that night," and I thought, "Are you really that stupid?"
People don't understand how business works.
Exactly, and so anyway, we may have made $20,000. We would have made some ticket add-on, but the bottom line is, if we'd had a major fight break out in there, and somebody would have got killed, God forbid, he's going to get in his car and leave with his $120,000. I'm going to be faced with lawsuits, possibility of shutting the bar down. I mean, I'm taking all the risk.
Yep, all the risk.
Every bit of it. Somebody falling in the parking lot, anything. So with that being said, I just, people don't understand the way business works. I mean, it was not, number one, there wasn't a ton of money to be made. We were doing it for the moment. He was hot. I'd love to have him at the bar. It didn't work out.
Fans would have enjoyed it.
He should have went on social media and said, "Listen, this is a small venue. The venues had to charge this ticket price. They've already sold 500. I'll come back to Knoxville next year. We'll do a show at Smoky Stadium, and we'll only charge $25." There was a way to handle it, and he handled it completely wrong. I mean, completely wrong. He could have called me and said, "Look, that's not going to work. I'll cut my price to $60,000. Let's sell 2 tickets for $100 or 3 tickets for $100. Something could have happened. But he basically threw us under the bus, which caused a lot of people to be mad at us.
Well, signing a contract to make, would you say
$120,000 for an hour.
For an hour, when you think about that, that's mind-boggling. I mean, this guy had one.
He was a one-hit wonder.
One-hit wonder.
He basically still is. And I mean, I know that it's just, like I said, I know a lot of people were upset. A lot of people was upset at me for nothing. But
well, his song though, that song and the hype around it was kind of a poor guy versus rich guy kind of thing.
Right.
So there was already a villain and a hero, and he kind of like made you the villain.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And
the bottom line is this. We live in a country, you can achieve anything that you want with hard work. Poor people are poor because they make poor decisions. I mean, now, don't get me wrong. There are some people, and I'm not talking about in foreign countries or third world countries. I'm talking about in the good old United States of America. If you are poor, it's because you've decided to be poor.
In one way, shape, or form.
Exactly. There's too much opportunity to make money in this country. There's too much opportunity to make money in Knoxville. Young realtors used to call me all the time and say, "How do you succeed?" Answer your phone would be the first way to succeed. Communication.
Don't get me started on that one.
I mean, I bought a lake house 3 years ago, had a place on the lake, wanted a bigger place. I called the realtor. I called his assistant. Finally called a friend of mine, and I said, "Hey, do you know this guy?" "Yes, I do." I said, "Can you get a hold of him and tell him I'd like to buy this place and pay cash and close on it quickly and not pick him to death on an inspection?" And she said, "Yeah." So we looked at it at 2 o'clock on a Sunday, signed a contract, had an accepted offer at 5 o'clock. And I'm thinking, it was not supposed to go on the market till Monday morning, but a $700,000 sale.
He can't answer the phone.
And he can't answer the phone. His assistant can't answer the phone, won't answer an email. And I'm thinking, I'm so mad at this point I could scream. I'm thinking if it was something at Walmart for $9.99, it'd be a different story. But this is, how do you conduct business like this?
So we're kind of hitting on a couple of topics here, but as far as real estate goes, I've always told my team, I said, number one, communication is the most important thing. I said, it's also the most difficult thing we do.
Yep.
Right? How we communicate, and being available and all that good stuff. But I said, to be successful in this industry, you have to be above the bar. I said, unfortunately, the bar is not that high.
Exactly.
I like, if you show up, if you talk to people, you return calls, you answer your phone, you answer your email, you show up, you almost have to be successful, right? Because you're going to end up talking real estate, and you're going to end up showing homes or listing a house. Like it'll happen. But so there's a lot of people that they think this is a part-time gig and they don't show up, or they think they're too important and they don't show up, and so that's that. But as far as you know, socio kind of economics thing, a lot of people don't, I think, realize that you're not some guy, you're not some investment firm. Well, I mean, you sort of are, but you are now.
Right.
You weren't. You're a local guy who worked his way to a point where you took a big financial risk to buy this place, but you've also learned a ton of stuff. And like just being on our little podcast here, you're cool with sharing your experiences. People don't realize they need to learn from people who have done stuff.
Oh, I could, man, if I was 25 and could have met Chuck Ward at 58 and I was 25, and I could have said, hey, I'm going to buy you lunch and pay you some money for you to teach me some of the things that you've learned and forgot and accepted. I mean, that would be, we didn't have RIA groups back then. We didn't have anybody that there was no television shows, good and bad as they are.
Right.
There was none available to watch. I was fortunate enough to have a cousin that was a firefighter and a contractor. So he had 10 days off a month that he could help me work on houses. So that's basically how we got started, was together. And, I was a quick learner and was not afraid to get my hands dirty or not afraid to paint or whatever it took to make it happen. And I told him, I said, I'll keep you with me. And he's still working for me today. So, but there again, just like the bar business, you learn so much with hands-on, education.
And so that being said, like people, I think with that song was just fuel for like at some point there was going to be a fire around it at some point.
Yeah.
And it is unfortunate that happened, but I'm glad you're past that. And
yeah. And it happened. He was going to take his show to the convention center in Knoxville. That didn't work out. Then he was going to take his show to the Smoky Stadium, and that did work out. So the bottom line is how people are blinded. There was 10,000 people at Smoky Stadium at $25 a head. Well, that's $250,000 last time I did my correct math. So he made more money than he was talking about making with me, but we were robbing people with a ticket price. At the end of the day, he's walking out with another $130,000, but it's not about the money.
Yeah.
No,
sure
it is. It's all about the money.
He had one song that struck it big, probably made a boatload off of it.
Well, that's the thing that people don't realize now. You don't have to tour. You don't have to do concerts. You stream your music, and people pay $2 or $3, and you get millions of streams.
Yeah.
Because they want it on their phone or they want it, in their playlist. So that's how they're making their money. I know a lot of entertainers that are not touring now because they don't have to.
Yeah.
They can stay home and get mailbox money.
Yeah. And good for them.
Yep.
They figured it out.
If it works, it works.
All right. So let's go to the next left field kind of thing.
Okay.
So flipping houses, Cotton Eye Joe onto a racetrack. I mean, not a second bar, not a. I mean, where?
Not a storage facility, which I've been looking for a couple of years now. Keep your eyes open for one of those.
Okay.
I'm actively looking. Years ago, I owned a race team, and it was a late model team, and we really got close to making it. Several of the people that we raced against are in NASCAR. It's a very money-oriented sport. We probably started out of a budget of $100,000 when we had our late model team. I'm talking about just truck, trailer, car, motor, help, maybe $150,000. And one of the gentlemen we raced against, he started with a $500,000 budget. It was just super competitive and fun But like I said, we had some good opportunities that didn't happen. We had a sponsorship opportunity with Goody's Family Clothing, which would have been phenomenal because they had 400 stores all across the United States. And
Until they didn't.
And we would have been racing what they call the All Pro Series. They were televised. Anyway, didn't work out. So we kicked that around for 2 or 3 years and had race teams and enjoyed doing that, and was a super huge race fan for years, and never sat one day and said, hey, I just want to buy a racetrack. Started talking to a realtor friend of mine who races cars, and he told me, he said, Newport's going to be for sale. And Newport is a very stagnant area that was really hurting for some entertainment. The track hadn't been open in 7 years, so we went up and visited it, and it's like, I don't know, it just beckoned me to say, hey, let's buy this and fix it up and see what happens. And, just the fun of remodeling it, seeing what was there, and I felt like when they priced it to me, it was a pretty good deal. It was the exact same price of what I paid for the Joe, which is weird.
Yeah.
And there's 30 acres there. There's a huge concession stand, press box. There's another concession stand. There's restrooms. The track itself, is there. There's a very nice log cabin on it that was the people's home place. So there was a lot of things there for, what we paid. And I thought, well, this will be fun. We'll go in and spend $300,000 or $400,000 and remodel it and just see what happens. And we've been accepted just with open arms. I mean, you just wouldn't believe it. It's just been the community, the mayor, the city council people, the sheriff. I mean, they're all excited to bring racing back to Newport. We're also going to do a lot of community involvement things, car shows, and maybe a farmer's market, or we're doing some partnering with some off-road people that are coming in September. So there's going to be a meet and greet there. We're going to do like I said, some concerts. We're in negotiations to do some concerts up there. Whatever will make money. And it's a super cool place because you've got plenty of parking. There's an additional 15 acres. It's just right at 30 acres, but there's an additional 15 acres that we can do camping if we decide to do that. We could even have RV camping. We could do a music festival, and just, the things you can do, the list just goes on and on and on.
Okay, so now after listening to you put all the pieces together, number one, you're remodeling. That's definitely in your wheelhouse.
Yep.
Number two, you now have experience with a bar and restaurant and all of that stuff. So all of the concessions and everything shouldn't be. Right. It's not like you're figuring all that out for the first time.
Exactly.
And you already have the entertainment, scenario worked out. So you got that, and I didn't realize you had history with racing. So no, it almost sounds like almost like the perfect thing. Like,
yeah.
Like you've got pretty much all of that.
Well, and it's kind of neat too, because the guy that I own the race team with is basically the facilities manager up there. He's been there every day since we closed on it April the 1st. And I mean, we've done a lot since April the 1st. We lost a couple of weeks to rain, but we've basically re-rocked and remodeled every part of the parking areas and created a lot more parking. We've paved around the track, the infield. We've remodeled all the concession stands, the press box. The fence that goes around has been painted. Some of it's been repaired. We're putting up new fencing, around the complete track. We're fixing the driveway coming into the track that had been damaged by bigger trucks or whatever. But yeah, and all of this is expensive, and all of it's cost money. New lighting, new sound. But at the end of the day, we will have a premier track that, like I said, people like Dale Jr. have started watching and commenting on their social media. We're having former race car drivers come out and say, hey, we're going to support you, because asphalt racing has been just a little bit of a dying breed the last 10 years. There's only 3 asphalt tracks or 3 paved tracks in Tennessee.
Really?
Us, Kingsport, and Nashville. That's it. And there's probably 50 dirt tracks.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a need. And Newport is growing leaps and bounds too. They've put in a 900 house tiny home development just past the track. So there's part of your built-in audience. I just so happen to be lucky enough that they're putting a major intersection in coming from 40 to downtown Sevierville. So we'll catch a lot of that traffic. And social media is around now that wasn't 7 years ago.
Right.
So that's all that free advertising and free publicity.
Yeah, the ability to get the word out is definitely and to find your audience, right? I mean, versus advertising, say on TV, where you have to be very selective on what channel or something, or you're going to advertise to a lot of people that might not be interested. You put something on social media, they're going to share it with their friends that are in the same thing, and yeah, that
Well, we've got 10,000 followers on Facebook, and we'll probably have 30,000 by the end of next year. And we've not done an Instagram, page yet. We've not done a TikTok page. We'll start out with a TikTok page showing the video of it being raw. There was 5,500 cars there that had to be crushed
wow,
because it was a junkyard and a racetrack. So they've cleaned all that up, got rid of all those cars. They did an antique car sale. They had several cars that was antiques. All that stuff's gone. So you're not seeing that stuff now that you would see when we first bought it. It's just becoming a really unique place. Plus, it's in Newport. You don't have the worry of well, we're going to keep somebody up, or you don't have a curfew, so to speak, that you'd have in Knoxville.
right.
But your possibilities of things that you can have there are unlimited.
So you mentioned dirt tracks. I've been to a couple of dirt track races. Obviously a lot of fun. But like Terry Joe she mentioned just last weekend she was like, I think I want to go to a dirt track race. We have a friend who races a client, Stacy Bowles. He races dirt track, and she's like Stacy is racing, and I was like, it's gonna be like 91 degrees, and that's dirty.
Yeah.
Like the two of those together.
Yeah.
Didn't sound like as much fun. I was like, it sounds like more fun to me? The lake. So taking the dirt out of that scenario.
Right, yeah.
I'm from Florida, Daytona, Speedway, all that stuff.
Well, Speed Week's down there is, it's all about pavement racing, and
yeah.
New Smyrna Speedway and Volusia County Speedway. I've been to all those because when we raced, we were there during Speed Weeks, and they have a race in down there. It's called the Snowball Derby in December when it's cold, and that's kind of the kickoff to the new season. So our possibilities up here are unlimited. And two, I like to think that I've met so many people in business, the last 20 years that we've got a great relationship with Old Smoky Moonshine. They're going to partner with us up there. The beer folks will partner with us just because they know we're going to sell a lot of product.
Yeah.
So we've made these relationships that will carry on to the racetrack.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. And we, like I said, I'm very particular. Things have got to be just right. I'm so excited to be able to get some new photos just this week of the things that's taking place. It's really starting to come together now. That's what we're looking for.
You have to get your nephew out there with the drone.
Yeah, yeah, we're looking forward to that. In the next couple of weeks, we'll start getting some more good video footage.
So you mentioned a storage unit. That sounds way too boring for you.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with some boring every once in a while. 100-unit storage building, they've become very easy to operate. You walk, you get in with your credit card, you pay with your credit card. I think that'd be fun. I could be at the lake and collecting my money and not have to have any phone calls.
Well,
and it might be a little boring compared to what my lifestyle's been the last 20 years.
Well, I would just say, Cotton Eye Joe, racetrack, all of those things, flipping houses. There's obviously just a lot of moving pieces and a lot going on there. So that's awesome, man. That is you're sort of building a bit of a legacy.
And it'll go that far.
Hey,
who knows? Maybe they'll name a street after me one day.
Yeah. well, you have Cotton Eye Joe, the world famous, and who knows where you could take this racetrack.
Well, and honestly, this racetrack is pretty famous itself. It'll be 50 years old in 3 years. That's an accomplishment with anything, And there's been a ton of some really good drivers race there. And we're going to do like a little wall of fame. We're going to have some pictures and some names and of some people that, were very instrumental in the sport. And we think, that's one thing. And we'll give back a lot to that community. That's one of the things, being so blessed, I've learned that giving back is really what you need to do. Because it's not about what you get, it's what you give.
Yeah.
We just did a golf tournament for Seymour Volunteer Fire Department a couple weeks ago, and raised $4,400 for them. They're building a new facility, and it's very expensive, and we were excited to get to do that.
That's awesome.
But and it's just we do a ton of fundraisers at the club. We did some stuff for the Boys and Girls Club. The fallen officer that was shot in Blount County, we did a deal for him and the girl that was shot also. We've done that a couple times. So that's, at the end of the day, it's really not about the money anymore. My dad used to tell me the more you make, the more you spend. And that's a very true fact.
Right.
But like I said, I've been super blessed. I was given a really neat God-given talent of how to make money, and was real aggressive in the way I worked and my work ethic. So it was, that's always been fun. And hopefully one of these days somebody will look at me and go, Chuck was a good guy. He was a hard worker, and he gave back to the community, and got a little ill sometimes at the bar, but he had to.
Well, and also I'm noticing a theme of not just like lifelong relationships, but even just with like people who work for you. In today's world, it's not uncommon to see people work. I mean, I've dealt with it here. You have somebody come and within a year they've decided to go do something else, or,
Right.
or just whatever. And then you start taking applications, and people got all these, well, I worked here for 6 months, here for 8 months. And you got people that have worked with you for decades.
I've got two people that have been there over 30 years. Another gentleman that's been there 28. I mean, we've got two bartenders that have been there over 20 years. So I would say 30% of the staff has been there since we opened, or very close to it.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and then same thing in the flipping business. I mean, I've got some of these people that's been with me since we started. And that's pretty remarkable at the end of the day that people can like each other that long. But we very seldom have a cross. I can't remember the last time I had a crossword with any of my employees. My business manager, he came to me 15 years ago and said, I'm just looking for a change, and I'd like to do some things different. He was running a furniture store on Chapman Highway, and we'd been friends playing softball and had been friends, close friends. I got him in the union. He was doing stagehand work. But, I mean, I've taken him from making $35,000 a year to probably 10 times that much. He's done really well. He's a smart kid. He's not like me. I love to spend money and not save it, and he likes to save it. So we're salt and pepper,
right,
which is good.
Yeah.
They both go well on dinners.
Yeah.
But that's been the cool thing, is having him there to kind of keep me in check. But in the meantime, his family has grown up, and he's got grandkids, and he's got a beautiful place on the lake, and they're getting ready to go on a Disney cruise, and basically he does anything he wants, But I've rewarded a lot of people like that, that's been very, their allegiance has been good to me, and they've been faithful to me. And the good thing about him is, man, you could put him in the room with your wife for $10 million. He's not going to mess with either one of them, because he's not interested in that. That's not his deal, So, and it's been good for us, but and all of our people are like that. It's like we're talking about Andrew at the bar. He's been there so long that you don't fool him very easy, and he can't wait to get there. I asked him one time, I said, well, you ever thought about retiring? No, I don't want to be home with my wife that much. I said, okay, I get it, and she don't want to be with him that much either. They got a great relationship. They just don't want to be together 24 hours a day. Yeah.
Much unlike my situation.
Yep, your situation is different. That's right. You better like Terry, because you're going to be with her a lot.
Yeah. All right. So as we wrap this up, what is next for Chuck Ward?
Well, we're excited to finalize the racetrack, get it open. Spending more time with my grandkids. That's become a fun thing. I've got a grandson that's 10 and one that's 2. So, boy, awesome. There's a big contrast there.
Yeah.
The one that's 10 is really involved in sports, and he's a pretty good little athlete. They just, they're just faced with so many different things now. These games that they play, and, we were outside with a water hose, literally.
Yeah.
That's what we got. But they're just, their lives are different now, a lot more spoiled, and a lot more things to get into that we didn't have to. But, just trying to do more family-oriented things, and relax a little bit more often, not take life so seriously. I mean, I was a grinder pretty hard for 25 or 30 years, and not sweat the small stuff. Just it's life. It's going to happen, and we had that small fire at one of our businesses a couple weeks ago, and it is a pain, but you got insurance. It's going to be overall to be better when it's remodeled, and the shop will be cleaner. We'll get rid of some things we've had we didn't need for 10 years, and
Yeah.
so anyway, just trying to live a little bit more for Chuck. I lost two dear friends in December. I mean, I still just to this day it's been mind-boggling. One of them I'd known through church for over 50 years, and had a massive heart attack and died. Then I had a friend fall out of the ceiling in Gatlinburg working a production show, and it just still doesn't seem real. It's just I know if you've ever lost anybody close to you.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I lost my father, but he died of cancer, and we knew he was going to die. He was sick for 2 years. But this guy just fell out of the ceiling, and there was really no rhyme or reason why it happened. And still don't know. And just, when you get that call that morning in December, just a couple of days after Christmas, that one of your best friends has fell out of the ceiling and died, it's a very eye-opening experience.
Oh, yeah.
And trying to talk to his wife and his son, and then being asked to speak at his funeral, not being able to know if you're going to be able to hold it together or whatever, but not knowing what to say, because there's really nothing you can say. But you're just in shock at that point. But it also really opens your eyes how short life really is.
Oh, we're not promised tomorrow.
That's right, and how precious it is, too, and
Yeah.
how fun it can be, but how, you're going to face some turmoils. But, like I said, living life to the fullest.
So I literally just witnessed that whole kind of scenario. Terry Jo lost a really good friend, and as she would say, good friend and mentor. It was her first boss that she had when she moved to Fort Lauderdale,
Mm-hmm.
and he owned a propane business. He built it from the ground up. Ultimately, sold it. Became very wealthy, but in the process, though, he was one of those guys who taught. Everybody at his funeral said he had a hard shell but a soft inside.
Right.
So like he didn't take any garbage, and he'd tell you when you screwed up, but he also cared about people.
Right.
And you could tell he touched a lot of people's lives. Well, he got sick, and he had talked to Terry Jo not that long ago, because they talked. They still years, decades later, still talk to him regular. But he never really said how sick he was.
Right.
And that was the last time they talked. And just the pure shock and all, like even with his family that knew he was sick, like it was just hard to believe.
I think sometimes people, when they're that sick too, they're very reluctant to say, this could be my last week or my last 2 weeks. That happened to a friend of mine I worked at the Coliseum with, and he actually worked with me at the club for a while. He was from California. He moved back to California and discovered he had cancer, and they said, you'll be lucky to make it to Thanksgiving. And it was literally 4 weeks he was dead, 50 years old. And I mean, that was one of those guys that, I saw every day for 10 years. And
Yeah.
then he worked for me at the club for 2 or 3 years and helped me at the back porch with the concerts down there. And you're just like, your phone's sitting here and you move it over there and you can't see it anymore. In your mind, you're thinking, why does this have to happen, to these good people?
Yeah.
Because we've got a lot of bad people running around here, and they'll just live forever, But
The
I
good
guess
die young.
that's what I was going to say. The song tells us best: the good die young.
It was Uncle Mont. He says, he said, the good die young. He says, clearly that tells you what because I know where I fall in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate having you here and having this conversation.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on. I'm very sorry I had to cancel the first time. You would not want to be around me with that stomach bug. I fought that for almost 2 weeks. It was crazy.
That is crazy.
And I don't know, to this day, I went to the doctor twice. They ran tests. They couldn't find anything. There's nothing wrong with you. I said, yes, there's definitely something wrong with me. You got to figure out what it is. I'm not sure if I need to be the doctor or not, but there's definitely something wrong.
Well, I'm glad you. 2 weeks is way too long to put up with something like that. But I'm glad that's passed.
Well, I'm you know how I am with my work ethic. So if I didn't get out of bed for 4 days. People were starting to call. They're like, "You gonna make it?" And I'm like, "I don't know."
That's when Chuck Ward is sick.
Yep, he's definitely sick. Definitely.
Well, man, I do appreciate it. I think this was a great show. hopefully there's somebody who listens to this who says, "Hey, I have a dream, or I have this want to go a direction and realize number one, it's possible. It's not easy, but it's possible.
Nothing easy, but it's very possible. Like I said, we live in I tell you, we live in such a unique country where there's so much potential to make money or, have a great work ethic or be a good person or give back. We just still have that freedom, that we can make that happen.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
That's right. And stay tuned for some of our concert announcements at the Newport Speedway. We may even have Oliver Anthony up there. Who knows?
So if somebody has a home, I'm gonna go ahead and let you plug, because I'm obviously a real estate agent. So if somebody has a home they want to sell, I'd like them to call me. But
yeah,
if somebody has a home, they'd be a great flip, or they need, they need to maybe get out of their house because they're in a situation. What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
always the cell phone. I mean, I've got it with me all the time, 865-924-9872. I'll even go one step further. If you got a home you want to sell, it needs flipped, you need to get out of it quick, I'll buy it, fix it up. We'll let the Fox Group sell it.
I appreciate that.
How are you going to get any better than that?
Yeah, right? That sounds like a deal to me.
I met with a realtor yesterday, and she was like, well, I'm going to try hard to find it. I said, well, if you find me a flip, we're going to buy it through you, and you're going to get to sell it. So it's kind of a double whammy. She was like, I never thought of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cotton Eye Joe, obviously, website, best way to keep up, social media.
Yeah, because we very seldom answer the phone. We get a lot of phone calls. People lost their ID or phone or whatever, keys. So the website, social media, do check that out, because that's where all the major announcements come from.
And then for the racetrack, we're
NewportSpeedway.com. We've got a Facebook page. Stay tuned. We're going to have some more social media. We'll have an Instagram and a TikTok. Going to be a lot of things happen up there in the next month. I think in the next month we'll be getting closer to opening. And we're not going to do a ton this year. We can't. Just don't have time. But we'll probably have 4 or 5 races and at least one concert. And that may be the 1st of August. Could even be the 1st of September. One thing I'm not going to do is open before we're ready. I just don't feel like it's doing it justice. And if you do and something happens, then I feel like we've went against everything that, we've tried to improve.
Well, kind of like opening down a restaurant is such an iffy thing, because that could be that day that the food ain't the best. Or
it's hard enough. If everything was perfect, it's hard enough to have that perfect day.
Yeah.
So you go in there and you're not ready, then that's what's going to happen. You're not going to be ready.
Well, man, I wish you much success. I mean, you already had much success, but I wish you much more success.
I really appreciate it.
And again, I appreciate you being on the show, and I think we're going to wrap it up with that.
Sure. Sounds good. Thanks again for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome, buddy.